Hey guys, Jeremy here with Simple Life. Welcome to another episode of Viewers Knives. Once again, these are all knives that are made by you guys, the viewers of this channel. It is really cool to see all these different knives from all different parts of the world, and I'm honored to be able to share your work. Let's get started. The very first knife we'll look at is sent to me from Gabriel, and he's a 13-year-old knife maker from Croatia. He made this knife from an old saw, and he said that it was his first knife, and he even says here that it's pretty bad, and he made it with hand tools, and the only tool he used was a drill. Gabriel, I think this is a great knife, and you know what? It might not be perfect, it might not be the greatest work you'll ever do, but it represents you starting something, you taking the first steps, and to be 13 years old and saying, you know what, I'm going to get my hands dirty, I'm going to use some tools, learn some skills, and make a useful knife. That is really cool to see. So I think this is absolutely fantastic, and hopefully this is just the start of many great knives coming from you. So Gabriel, thank you for sending this in. The next knife we'll look at is sent to me from Garrett. He's a 27-year-old. He actually works for an armored truck company by day, and he's an aspiring knife maker on the weekends. This knife he made was from an old saw blade. He used aluminum rod for the pins and some scrap wood for the scales. He made this thing entirely from scratch, and he says in here, I'm rather proud of it, and absolutely you should be. This is an excellent looking blade, really fantastic for your first knife. He also included a picture of the next knife he wants to do, which he himself calls a rather ambitious design, but you know what? I think that's fantastic. Always challenge yourself. Always try something harder and difficult. That's the only way to get better. Great knife, Garrett. Thank you for sending this in. This next knife we'll look at is sent to me from Jared, and he is 41 years old from Arlington, Oregon. He's been making knives on and off since he was 15 years old. And this knife here, he just kind of threw it together. He used a scrap conduit, like a junction box cover, and the blade length is 1 3/4 inches. It's got a 4-inch long handle, and that handle is 1/2 inch wide. He used nylon thread to wrap it around, and just basically wanted a little utility knife to have around. Excellent work here, Jared. Thank you for sending this in. All right, we're going to head from Oregon over to Pennsylvania. Dan is a 19-year-old sheet metal fabricator, and he's been making knives for a couple of years, but he's only recently started to take it kind of seriously. This knife here is one that he actually made for his girlfriend for Valentine's Day. I think that's so cool when you can give handmade gifts. Nicely done. And the steel he used for this one was an old saw blade instead of the typical 01 that he usually works with. And he also put aluminum handles with 304 stainless steel pins. I think that is really cool. I love the look of the aluminum handle there, and the profiling, the shaping he did, the edges of that handle looks absolutely fantastic. So Dan, great work. I'm sure your girlfriend was thrilled with this, and hopefully she just enjoys using it for years and years to come. Thank you so much for sending this in. Thank you for your wonderful email and your kind words. All right, we're going to head from Pennsylvania to Lubbock, Texas. And I've actually driven through Lubbock a couple of times. It's a really cool little place, and I never really spent time there, but drove through there a few times. Anyways, Rob is a 42-year-old letter carrier, and these are some knives that he's made. He's forged them all himself, and the steel that he likes to use are 80 CRV2, W2, and 52-100 carbon steels. I think these knives look really nice, and to think, I mean, I'm just starting to get into forging knives myself and forging in general. Very respectable. I like the finish that you've been able to get on these. Nice rasp knife there, and this just looks absolutely fantastic. So Rob, keep up the great work, and thank you for sharing this with us. All right, this next knife we're going to look at is sent to me from Cheyenne, and this is quite an impressive project. This is a knife that he made. He made the saya, everything, all from hand. The steel that he used was a piece of 5/8 01 drill rod. He forged it out, and just everything here is done by hand, and just incredible. He says he has 68.3 hours in from the start to finish, and even the handle, like when the tang goes into the handle, it's all mechanically fastened. There's no epoxy or glue used in this project at all. All the copper, all the decorative forging, that was all done by hand. Everything just with minimal tools, all by hand, and absolutely inspiring to see people taking on such ambitious projects. So Cheyenne, excellent work. This is very impressive, and thank you for sharing this. CJ Miller sends in some pictures of some knives that he's made. He uses a lot of Farrier's rasps, as you can tell with these ones. I really like this dagger he's done here, this double-edged dagger, very nicely done. And then this huge, big, kind of a machete, Tonto-looking blade, really nice. I like the way that turned out, and again, you've done a really nice job with the paracord handle wrap there. Absolutely fantastic work, CJ, and also he sent in a couple pictures of some forge burners he made and his forge, and I tell you, those things look like they're incredibly effective. It's definitely one thing I want to do is do some upgrades to my forge this year. So thanks for sending these in. There's excellent pictures and definitely a good reference. Alright, this next knife we'll look at is sent to me from Paul, and he's a 29-year-old knife maker from Georgia. He's only been making knives for about 3 months, mostly been doing stock removal, but he's recently got into forging his own metals now as well. I think this is a great looking blade. He used 5160 steel with stainless steel pins and pecan natural scales. I really like the profile, looks like a really nice bird and trout style knife, and I just imagine that thing would probably feel excellent in your hand. So Paul, excellent work. Thank you for sharing this with us. We are going to head from Georgia to South Africa, and Dewald is a 28-year-old knife maker, and he also has only been making knives for about 3 months, and he's really enjoying it. He built his own 2x72 belt grinder for grinding in the bevels, and he said the one thing he's struggling with is some heat treating. He buys the blanks pre-cut and then grinds the bevels on himself, and you know what? That's another great way to go as well. And even, people talk about getting into knife making, and there's so many different ways to go about it, so many different steels, and I think the key is to just say, hey, you know what? Whatever you need to do to get into it, if that even means buying a pre-cut blank and just putting scales on it for your first knife, don't claim that was your knife, the blade that you made, but there's nothing wrong with starting knife making that way, or find whatever steel you can. And so that's exactly what Dewald has done here. He got his blanks profiled for him, put the bevels in himself, and that was heat treating them. And he says he's struggling to get a good heat treat, and that's all part of the learning process. He also asked if 01 is more forgiving steel than 14C28N, which is what he uses. And I honestly have never used that steel, and there's a lot of controversy. A lot of people don't like 01 tool steel. From my experience though, I think it's a fantastic steel for a beginner. Not for forging, it's very difficult to forge, it doesn't move very much, but for making stock removal knives, 01 tool steel is a great steel in my opinion. And that also comes from my years when I was doing my apprenticeship, when I was I think like 18, 19 years old. We had to make our own lathe cutting tools, and we used 01 tool steel because we could, manipulate the metal, make whatever lathe cutting tool you wanted, and get a good heat treat on that steel. So I still say the 01 is a great option. Right from the beginning of my knife making, I've been using 01 tool steel, and started out with fairly rudimentary means of heat treating, like with blow torches, a couple torches and stuff. And I honestly still do believe that is an excellent steel, and a great steel for beginning knife makers. So Dewald, hopefully that answers your question. I think your knives look great. Keep on making knives, keep having fun with it, and thank you for sharing your work with us. All right, we're going to head back to Texas now, and Luke is a 15-year-old knife maker, and he's made 3 knives so far. I really like this one here. This one he made for a friend of his, and made that leather sheath with it too. This picture here, this was actually the very first knife that he made, and I really like that clip point on there. Excellent looking blade. And if you also kind of look in that picture there, you'll see there's a little sheep's foot EDC, and he actually bought one of my knives, one of my early sheep's foot EDCs, the very first one I actually did in stainless steel. So Luke, excellent blades. Thank you for your support, and I hope you keep on making knives, keep on having fun with it. Thank you for sharing this. And with that, we're going to wrap up this episode of Viewers Knives. I thank you guys so much for sharing your work and allowing me to share it with the world. I think it's fantastic to see what you're doing. Hopefully you guys watching this have seen something that maybe just triggered a little bit of inspiration, or said, you know what, I'm going to go ahead and do that. I can make something like that. And this is a progression, right? I mean, not every knife is going to turn out exactly how you want. Not every knife is going to be perfect. But be proud of every knife that you make, and take each one as a learning point. Every knife, it doesn't matter how many knives. I don't know how many knives that I've made so far, but every single one, there's things that I would have done differently. And also every single one is pretty much guaranteed to be better than the previous one, because I've got more experience going into this one than I did on the last knife that I made. So keep that in mind, guys. If you'd like to have your knife featured on this channel, just email me, jeremy@homesteadknives.com, and I'll put it into the queue. Just as a note of reference, the knives from this video were from February 2018, so we're almost a year behind in submissions, but I'm going to try and get these videos out a little more regularly, hopefully weekly if we can, and keep sharing your work, because it is truly great to see. Thank you so much for watching, guys. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, give it a thumbs up. Be sure to subscribe to this channel and leave some comments. Show your support for the makers below. This is all just part of building this wonderful community that we have, where we can share with each other and learn from each other. Thank you guys so much for watching. Cheers.